Hello, it's Pastor Dave, and it's been a while, but I thought it'd be a good time to do another rocking chair chat where I just sit in this rocking chair in the office and speak with you without really any notes or any manuscript like I do on Sunday morning. Right now, my head is really in two different places. I mean, right now, we're starting to see that there might be a light at the end of this tunnel. I have thoughts on when we may be back together. I mean, I have started doing work towards worship in May because I'm assuming at least right now that first Sunday in May we will still be live streaming and doing digital worship. But beyond that, I have hopes, but I can't say when we will be back together, whether it's Mother's Day or later in May or even June. But my head's really in two places. One is thinking, what do we need to do to come back? I mean, obviously, we're going to get guidance from elected officials. We're also going to get guidance from our annual conference on what needs to be done and when we can start worshiping together again safely. And really, my thinking with it is there are probably some things that we will need to take care of in both churches to really effectively worship together. I'm not sure whether or not we will need masks, but that's something to keep in the back of our minds. But yet, at the same time, most of us have masks now anyway because of having to go to the store. But things like hand sanitizer might be a good idea. I know East Salem that's going to be taken care of, hopefully by that point. Haven't talked with Otterbein about it, but things like that will need to be done, as well as encouraging people to really keep family units separated by 6 feet. We have the space really in both churches to do that reasonably well. It's just, I know it's hard sometimes to have people move to a different pew, but it might be something we need to do for a while. And frankly, I'm sitting here going, I don't know whether I'm going to have my daughter sitting up front with me or not, just for that same reason of social distancing, if we still need to do that. But it's even other things of, like, is it appropriate to restart Sunday school in these conditions, especially thinking about children in Sunday school from different households close together. I mean, can we realistically restart Sunday school immediately, or do we need to hold off on that? Can we do some form of fellowship, which, trust me, I want to truly celebrate when we're back together. I think everyone would be perfectly fine with having donuts that first day back. But can we reasonably do that and maintain appropriate distances to alleviate fears and concerns? That's part of where my mind is. Now, the other part of my thinking right now really is what's coming next. This morning I had a pastoral leadership development class online with other pastors of our district. And that kind of dominated some of our discussion was what are we facing now, and for some of us, what the after effects are going to be. And that's a lot of where I'm at, because a lot of what we're doing now and a lot of the things we've been relying on were things we were going to probably be implementing in the future anyway. Instead of having those be 6 to 18 months out, now they're already in place, ready to go. So for me, part of it is things that I was thinking we would have about 6 months to a year really to start implementing. They're here. It's not going to take, we're going to have to play around with a few things, but like live streaming, I think that is a good thing to continue doing. It can connect us with people who are homesick, the homebound, people who moved out of the area who still want to connect with our churches. That is a good thing. And we're going to continue, but that means we may have to make other changes, like changing our license for music, and it may mean that we have to change how we do things like special music. It may mean we have to change things like not showing videos of new songs. It may change some songs we might not be able to use anymore because we can't get a license for it. That's something that may have to change. We may need more help doing the digital side of things. There may be a ministry opportunity for some. I may have to change how I do other things. I mean, right now, like the Amos Bible study, that was a Bible study I wrote a few years ago for my commissioning work. And I had thought before how you could do an online Bible study and an online talk. And I was just thinking about it. Well, in 2 weeks of having to shut everything down, that was up and running. And 6 sessions recorded and scheduled, and it was a bit rough. I probably would do things differently the next time around, but that's here now. So even my thinking now is, what am I going to do this fall? Could I potentially, and what I may end up doing is, we'll finish off the Mark Bible study. After we're back together, we'll kind of barrel through it. And then over the summer, I'll start putting together a Bible study on something else, and we may have a live session, and we may have a recording of it, and we'll take it and do it that way. We may find other ways of doing digital outreach, digital learning, and that's actually where my mind is now. But even to pick up those additional tasks of additional recording, additional activities, what else may have to change to accommodate that? And a lot of that's really unknown. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of an unknown of how we can take on different things and do different things. And right now, I don't have an answer for that. Right now, I kind of just want to get back to a little bit of a sense of normalcy, and back to some of the normal things like in-person worship with hymns and actually seeing you on Sunday mornings. So that's kind of where we're at. That's where my head is. That's the type of things that lead to me recording one of these instead of doing other work, because I'm not able to completely focus down on one thing that I have to do right now. So that's where I'm at. Now, just some other things, just because I don't think of it Sunday morning, or there's other ways of, or I haven't really effectively communicated this. General conference for this year was postponed until next year. That makes common sense, especially since about 45% of the delegates come from overseas. It's not happening this year. So all those talks we had earlier this year, right now, that's all on hold for about another year. So sometime next year we'll bring it up again, we'll talk about it, and we'll have a better sense really of what's going on, how things may look, what the options are. The legislation should be fully vetted out. We might have a better idea of what's happening. So that's not happening this year. At least as I'm recording this, I have no idea what's happening to our annual conference yet. Our annual conference is scheduled for the end of May to be held down in Hershey. I think the hope overall is that we will still have it in some form, because there are a few things that have to be done, such as we have to have a corporate session. It's an incorporated body. The trustees have to meet, and the conference as a whole has to approve it. That must be done. The clergy session has to happen to approve ordination for candidates, including a pastor in our area. We still need to do the ordination itself. A lot of what we do doesn't absolutely have to be done. And we were already having a special session of our annual conference in October of this year, because we needed that session to set our own budget, because the general conference budget wouldn't be done until about 2 weeks before annual conference, and they wouldn't have had the time to come together and set our conference budget. So we were going to have a special session anyway to approve the budget, and I would assume welcome our new bishop. That's still happening in October, and I can't remember off the top of my head which Saturday in October that is. But I still think we're going to have something before annual conference to have the corporate session, vote on ordinations and commissionings, and really just setting the appointments and things like that, because they are still setting appointments. Pastors are still being introduced online to new churches. They're still doing all that work. So that's a whole other mess of things going on. Most of that doesn't affect us, so I mean, as of right now, we're still expecting to do VBS this year, and mainly because it's too early to determine whether or not it's a good idea to have it or not. By the time summer rolls around, things may be calm enough that we would have no problem doing VBS. And if that's the case, we want to be ready for it. If not, we'll hold everything until next year. But as of right now, that's still set. Elevator work is pretty much done. The company was actually going to come and finish it up. They had to have a waiver to finish their current work. So that's one more project that's down. And really, that's about it. I mean, for me personally, I'm a good chunk of my way through my ordination paperwork and papers, so just about 11 theological questions left to answer. And I have about 2.5 weeks left to do that before we would potentially be back together. And my goal is to have that done before we start resuming normal activities, just because now I may have more work coming this fall. And work I wasn't necessarily expecting. I'm not complaining about that. It's a good thing. I think this whole event has shown us different ways that we can be the church and different ways that we can do our activities that may help us reach people who can't normally participate in them, or to even reach people outside of our church, and that is a good thing. So that's what's going on. I thought it'd be a nice way of just utilizing the tools we have to share what's happening in the life of the church, what's happening beyond the church, and I guess where your pastor's head is as we're looking into what we're going to be doing when we get back. Because how things were before, we can never go back there at this point. So what can we do going forward? If you have any thoughts for me, you can always email me, call me, text me. Let me know what you think, and we'll find a good way of being in ministry with one another. But until I see you, take care, and Sunday morning we'll be live streaming again. Have a good one.